The fact that he did a proof of this theorem when we've known the theorem is true for thousands of years kind of gives you a little bit about what math is about, right? We know the result, so why visit it again? Well, it's kind of artistic. It's fun. It can be beautiful. And sometimes if you think of a new way to approach a problem, it accidentally opens a door to another problem you weren't thinking about.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
Hey, Ethan.
Hello, Mitchell.
Ethan Chanty is with us. He's in the studio, as he always is, because he is the producer of this here podcast called Northwards.
This here podcast ain't big enough for the both of us.
Ethan, you're a bald, bearded man like myself.
Mitch, you are a bald, bearded man like me.
People have accused us of looking somewhat similar.
Well, it's, we're not doing ourselves any favors when we dress identically almost every single day.
Hey, you're wearing spruce blue, and I'm wearing navy blue,
right,
even though the logo on our sweatshirts is exactly the same.
Because that one is from the 90s,
This
right?
one is actually from 1997, which means that I have... See, here's how we differ. I have a good 20 years on you, and you have a good 20 tattoos on me.
That's true. But, with my sleeves down, you can't really notice.
The thing is, people can't tell what we look like by listening to us on this here podcast, can they?
Right. But today we are decked out in our identical Northwards ball caps and our nearly identical sweaters. Mine, as Mitch said, is green. His is blue. His is from the 90s. Mine is brand new from the year 2025 because we decided that we did this whole thing where we reached out to people and we asked them to send us photos of like their favorite NCPR swag from over the years. And we got a photo of this sweater. Shelly has one. You have one. And we were like, dang, that looks really nice. All of us just want that. So now everybody in the studio is decked out pretty much exactly the same. And then you designed a new Northwards ball cap to replace the old trucker cap. And the funny thing about it is that the embroidery character on it could be either one of us.
So just a little glimpse into how this logo came to be. We had an intern from, she was a graphic design intern whose name is completely escaping me right now because it's like 4 years ago. And she was from Clarkson University, and we had her designing a bunch of logos and podcast icons and things like that. And this was actually still towards the tail end of COVID, so we were doing everything online. And the only view she had ever had of me was in a little box on Zoom.
Right.
And so she had the same view of me every time, which was this bald guy with glasses and a pair of headphones on. And so she cooked up the Northwards logo that has a little compass in it pointing north for north words. And
I get it.
That's how that worked. But we wanted to make something a little bit more distinctive. So she thought, hey, why not put Mitch on the O in words?
You know what occurs to me right now is if you looked like that in real life, you would look like the episode of Treehouse of Horror, The Simpsons, where Homer's head turns into a donut and he keeps picking at it. And Chief Wiggum and the other cops are waiting for him outside.
There's always a Simpsons reference, isn't there?
With us, yeah, there is.
Anyway, the great thing about this new Northwards ball cap, I had made a prototype of it and ordered it online because it amused me. And enough people asked, hey, where did you get that ball cap? That when it came time to order new Northwards ball caps, we decided to go with it.
And it looks great. I love it because I enjoy the fact that when we're out in public, people are going to say, are you wearing a hat with your own face on it? And I'll say, no, it's my boss's face.
Right.
And you can do the same thing.
And I'll say, this is my producer's face. Yes. And now you, too, can wear a hat that has a head that people will ask you about. And you can say, no, it's not my head, because people will wonder because you are potentially a woman with curly hair.
Right. And basically just not a bald, bearded man.
Right. And they'll say, that's not you, is it? And you can say,
no. It's my grandpa Ernest or something.
It's these random guys that host this podcast, and they're on my head now.
Anyway, this is the NCPR annual fall fundraiser. This episode of Northwards, we're going to get into a conversation with mathematician and SLU professor and author Dan Look.
For folks who don't listen in the North Country, SLU is St. Lawrence University.
St. Lawrence University. He has written this book all about cats and math.
My two favorite topics.
Your two favorite topics for sure. Maybe Dan's two biggest obsessions other than Transformers and horror movies. But so we're asking for your support, your direct support during our annual fall fundraiser. And if you like, you can get this ball cap at ncpr.org/give, yours for a $10 a month donation. And your contribution, monthly or one time, ensures that we can continue doing this important work. Is Northwards important work? We like to think so. And obviously you do too, because you're listening to it right now. So now's the time to support. We don't often ask for you to do this, but it is critical that we have support from our community members directly from our listeners right now, as we no longer can rely on federal funding at NCPR. So support us right now, ncpr.org/give. If ball cap isn't your speed, maybe you can get this new sweater that we're wearing, or you want to add to your coffee mug collection. That works too.
And, you don't have to enjoy math or cats to appreciate this next interview, the same way you don't have to be a bald-bearded man to appreciate this ball cap. But in both cases,
it helps.
So you are Dan Look, and you are Ethan Shanty.
Hello.
And welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not really welcoming you, Ethan, because you're already in the studio.
Here,
But I wanted to start this conversation by pointing out that I have now been in radio for 34 years, and this is just my second ever interview about a math book.
Oh, really?
It is. And I happen to have the first one with me.
Oh, my God.
Is it Joy of Sets?
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah. It's
yes, Danica McKellar.
Yeah,
yes.
yep.
Winnie.
From the Wonder Years fame.
Yeah, Winnie.
I was expecting that you would be I guess you are all in black the way she is on the cover of this book. But,
so are you telling me that, you interviewed Dan McKellar and then, first of all, Dan Look, but also just what a step down. I'm so sorry.
Exactly right.
I apologize for where I'm bringing your career.
Was she hesitant to talk about her career as an actress or an actor? I mean,
no, because I think it would have been. I mean, not that her book wouldn't have been relevant,
right.
If she hadn't also had her career as Winnie Cooper and in various other places. But certainly, writing a geometry book, she got a little. I mean, she's written a whole bunch of geometry or of math books, and she has a theorem named for her, but. Most of us would have no interest in it at all if not for the Winnie Cooperness to it.
The Cooper is something.
So she's at peace with it.
She is definitely at peace
cool.
with it.
Good for her.
And Dan, look, are you at peace with your role in the Wonder Years?
You know what, I am.
Good.
I was an avid viewer.
Also, I would like to point out that your book is somewhat thinner, which actually made me appreciate it more.
Well, that's because Danica is well known for using just insane margins and large font size. There's probably half the text in that book.
We should.
I kid, Danica.
If you're listening, let us establish, if we can, your street cred in both math and cats. Okay. Start with math.
Okay, so I have a PhD. I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics from the University of Maine, and then a master's degree also in mathematics from the University of Maine, and then a PhD also in mathematics, and that one's from Boston University. And so I did complex dynamics, which kind of relates to chaos theory and Julia sets and fractals and things like that. And then I've been a professor here at St. Lawrence for the last 15 or 16 years.
Dan's main claim to fame, Maine with an E, is that you ran into Stephen King one time.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah, so I was in the pep band at the University of Maine, because of course I was. And
What instrument did you play?
Guess.
So
Guess.
There's
Guess?
really? Okay, yeah, guess.
I'm going to say
The tornado.
Piccolo, yeah, the tornado, right?
I played trumpet, and that's what I was trained on, but then switched over to something called a mellophone, which is kind of like a trumpet filled with a bit of air. It's like just a little bit bigger, and it plays the line of like the alto saxophone, but in a marching band. And so, yeah, played that. This time I was carrying my trumpet. Stephen King notoriously goes to, or at least went to, pretty much every sporting event at the university, especially hockey and basketball. This was at the time Cindy Blodgett was at the University of Maine, and Stephen King's wife wrote a book on Cindy Blodgett. And so we're in Augusta, Maine, at an arena, and I'm on my way out, and I'm talking to my friends, I'm not paying attention, get to the doors, I have my trumpet case, and so when you go through a door with like a suitcase, basically, you kind of swing it in front of you, right? And so I swung it in front of me and heard like, ow, at the other end, and I realized, I just hit somebody who was politely holding the door for me, and it turned out to be Stephen King, and his comment was, I caught him on the upper thigh, and he was like, that was a close one. And then I've just waited for some... Maybe another Bachman book if he does that, but something to come up where that's the thing.
Yeah, I was going to say there's lots of
the Langoliers.
There's lots of villainous Dans in his books now.
Ever since then, every one of them.
Right, and so we go from that to cats.
Cats. So I've always really enjoyed the company of cats. So there's a picture of me in the back of the book with the first cat. Well, I shouldn't say the first cat I had.
Is there a picture of you in the back of the book?
There is, but I'm very small. You have to go back one more page, I think.
Oh, look, there it is, yes.
Yeah, and you can see, it's not that the cat's big, it's that I'm tiny, because you can see the door handle. So basically what Mitch is looking at is a picture of me when I'm maybe 2 or 3, and I'm holding a cat. I'm holding the cat under the arms, and the cat's feet are still on the floor. And so that was Roosevelt
Franklin.
Or... Yes. Every time I say that, I have to remember which one's the president and which one's the Muppet. So, yeah.
They're both a Muppet. I was about to point out that...
Are we getting political?
No, we're not. I was about to point out that there was a character on Sesame Street by that very same name.
Okay, and that's what my older brother had. So I don't want to call it my cat because the cat belonged to the family before I did. But... a lot of times with that cat, loved that cat, came to, that was when we were in Connecticut, moved to Maine, had a couple other cats growing up, and then cats, a couple more cats. And then right now I have 4 cats is where we've landed on. My license plate is cats forever, right? My wife's is more cats. We're kind of leaning into it.
You know what's funny is that the last time I was cat sitting with you, which is primarily why I'm here sitting in on this interview.
Presumably you were cat sitting for the cats and not...
Well, I was keeping a close watch on Dan.
Yeah.
It's all required.
But I was walking outside of your house, and I think this was when you were in the middle of your house renovations, and so your garage door was not installed yet, so someone could see your license plate, right? And I stepped out of the house. I just ran into one of my friends. He was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, just like watching these cats for a friend," and they were like, is this like a cat sanctuary here? Is this like a rescue? I was like, no, they just have a lot of cats. They love them.
Or is it?
right. One person's lot of cats is another person's cat sanctuary. Exactly.
Right? So you do love cats, and I love your cats. They're except Conan, who's mean to me.
Yeah, he can be a little bit difficult. They're all
immortalized in this book, right?
Yes, they're involved in the creation of the book, and their pictures are insanely masterfully drawn by the artist in the back of the book. He just looks friendlier than he really is in the back of the book.
This is Conan T. Cat, right?
It is. Yeah. Conan the Cat, yeah.
I really want to get along with Conan because I like him, but he doesn't like me.
He probably does. He just has trouble showing it.
What I appreciate, though,
is pulling your pigtails, Ethan.
Right.
My 2 dogs' middle initials are also T, and it's for the same reason.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have Linus T. Cockapoo and Muesli T. Schnoodle.
See, it just makes sense. And with Conan, obviously, it's a reference to Robert E. Howard, right. Conan the Barbarian, so Conan the Cat.
Are cats actually a pretty good tool to think about math?
Probably not.
Okay.
All right, my guest has been Dan Luck.
Exactly. But you should buy this book to find. Anyway, or definitely. It's one of those 2. And so I'm going to, I think, change my answer to definitely because I can't think of anything that's worse with cats added in. Right? So it's not that cats, I'm not trying to say they're
machines.
Well, I mean, Now I'm wondering if they're operating it. Really, there's so many scenarios. But so it's not so much that the cats are going to make this easier to explain, but they make it more fun to explain and maybe tolerable to certain people who may be less interested in math and more interested in cats.
Well, yeah, so I guess the question for me was, did you start thinking about math in terms of cats, or did you start thinking about cats in terms of math?
It's just, I want that on my tombstone, that I was at one point in my life asked about that. So let's not forget this. Somebody get that timestamp. So for me, it was actually a suggestion from the editor, who is a acquaintance of mine from several years back, and reached out. And the idea initially was wanting to do a book about like memes that you see online with cats and math. So there's the kind of famous one that I sort of recreate on the cover of the book, which is the cats curled up in the typical cat sunbeam circle. And somebody has drawn like, a Fibonacci spiral or something over the cat. And so the idea initially was, let's find a bunch of these, and then you can describe what's going on in them. And then we thought about rights. How do we get access to and who owns this, right? If I accidentally use like Grumpy Cat, I'm in trouble. And so how do we find how to use these? I started thinking about I can make a bunch of these, which I started doing, and then eventually they're like, between the printing costs and if you're making them, it can probably be a lot cuter if we just have them drawn. And that freed up everything, because then I could explain certain things that were not easily memifiable, right? I couldn't represent it in one picture.
And then you're not worried about, well, we need one more chapter, and I'm going to just do either Icon has cheeseburger or hang in there.
I refused. Now, hang in there was not off the table.
Because of The Simpsons.
Because of The Simpsons. Whoever that cat is long dead now. But the other one, the Icon has cheeseburger, was a very deliberate. I'm not gonna. I will never make a. I'm not going to insult it. I'm not going to make a cat talk like that, right?
Right.
That's not how they talk.
What I found out recently about the publishing world that I thought that was really interesting, and maybe you didn't know about this in advance, but often book ideas will come from the publisher first and then go to an author, and the author will put their own spin on it. I learned that from another author friend, Rebecca Donnelly, who writes children's books, and I was really shocked that that's like an industry standard.
It makes me so happy to hear you say that. I spent the last year feeling like I was a fraud because I didn't come up with it. That's not true. But it is nice to hear that it was kind of a pitched idea, and that's not as uncommon as I may have thought it was.
Well, and I wonder if actually the publisher or the editor or whatever is a good proxy for the rest of us, that you and Danica McKellar are both onto something in terms of people out there needing this entree into math that taps into something they're already interested in. In Danica McKellar's case, girls and dates or whatever. If you could explain to me what girls were interested in high school, and send me back to high school, I'd be a happy guy. But yeah, I mean, there are people out there.
I can tell you what they weren't.
But they might. There are people out there that probably don't get math or don't think they get math because they don't see it applied to the stuff they're interested in.
I can see. Oh yeah, I mean that's 100% true. And there are no I'm not applying the math to cats in a traditional way. The thing that I use is when I have to give my cat medicine, right? I stir it into a treat, and so the cat is the treat, making the math digestible to some people.
Yeah.
I think that's an analogy or a metaphor, right?
Is it? I didn't know. Or simile? I don't know.
You're a creative writing major, Ethan.
My wife would kill me.
We would have accepted both.
Thank you. 3 people were automatic.
I mean, I do remember my dad, who had a physics degree from MIT, trying to get me more interested in geometry through my interest in baseball.
Yes.
And in the end, I can still calculate earned run averages and batting averages, but probably certainly nothing geometric.
Yeah, and the thing with exercises like that is sometimes they are useful for actually doing mathematical explorations, but then a lot of times it's if it's kind of, and I've done this before because I think a lot of teachers do, I kind of will shoehorn something in to make it more interesting to deliver. It's hard to stick depending on how that happens, right? because you're not actually probably in the same way that we tell students, oh, well, we study parabolas in algebra because then you can see where a baseball lands. No, we don't. Right? I mean, it's related, sure, but there's like wind and it's the spherical cow problem of physics. And so we say these things, but it's more like they're related to that, and it allows you to know that there is something that conceivably could be applied to this stuff that you don't like.
Well, like modeling weather, as I read.
Yes, modeling weather. That is one incredibly tricky to model weather. This is why we should not blame our meteorologists or weather delivery people for the incorrect predictions, right? Because it's actually a chaotic dynamical system. There's only so far out that we can measure before things just get meaningless.
Yeah.
Well, I need a person to blame, so I'm going to keep blaming the weatherman.
Oh, you sure can. Yeah, you can yell at your cloud all you want, man.
Did you have was there like one particular theorem or concept that sticks out that you had the most fun explaining via cats?
I would say the one that I enjoyed writing the most may have been Mr. Peppa's Party Problems, and the reason is because of what you just saw. I have never once been able to read that name without laughing. So that one is fun, and the idea is just really, really awesome. The fact that it's based on, that one is explaining what statisticians call the birthday paradox or the birthday problem, and this is like, if you have so many people in a room, what's the probability that there's a shared birthday? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that crossing over 50% is incredibly low, like 26, 27, right? Then you've got your 50%. Somebody will call in that is not the exact right number, but somewhere around there. And so I
think you greatly over-exaggerate the math aptitude of our listeners.
Also, this isn't live.
Now I want to say, please call in.
Wait, I think we have a call coming in now.
Whoever
Caller, are you there?
Is it the NCPR traffic copter? So that one was a lot of fun. But I think counting base mu may have been my favorite one to write because I find that a very interesting topic, right? Translating between binary and base 10.
Right.
I heard the muse today.
I heard the muse today was
because
good, yeah.
that's I like that. Let's Win a Cat is fun because that's the Monty Hall problem or paradox that was like huge from Marilyn Vos Savant.
Which is what?
So the concept is that you have it's based on let's make a deal.
Okay.
Got three doors.
Yep.
3 doors. Behind 2 of the doors are things you don't want.
Right.
And
Zonks, I believe they called them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've always heard, that when you explain it mathematically, it's always donkeys, right?
Yeah.
And then something you want, which is usually a car. In this case, in our book, obviously, the things you don't want is just these giant piles of cash, but it's the cat that's behind that third one that you want. And so the idea is that you go up, there's 3 doors closed. 1 has a prize, 2 have things, and you pick one. Right? I pick door number 2. Now, if you pick the cat, then there's 2 doors left that you didn't pick that are closed with piles of cash, with the prize you don't want. If I picked one of the doors with a prize I don't want, there's still another door with a prize I don't want that I didn't pick. So no matter what, I pick a door, 2 doors left, at least one of them has a prize I don't want.
Okay.
So the host walks up and opens that door.
Right, Monty says, I'll show you what's behind door number
3.
2.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always going to be one of the losing ones. It would be kind of a cruel trick if you open it. Oh, it's the car. Sorry, have a nice day. Enjoy your donkey. And so they open that other door. Then they ask, would you like to stick with your initial guess or switch to that other unopened door?
Okay, right.
And Marilyn Vos Savant had a write-in kind of a question column, and somebody asked about this question, and this is a really interesting math story or statistics story, really, because she answered that. Well, let me ask you: do you think that it matters if you stick or switch?
I believe the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the answer is you should always switch.
Yes, it turns out it is. You should always switch every time. And so she writes that. She's like, you switch. And a lot of people were very angry about that. They want it to be 50-50 or to not change the effect. And the number of kind of letters that she received from people with PhDs saying this is why people without PhD shouldn't be talking about. But she's absolutely correct, right? And so one of the ways to see this is imagine you have 1,000 doors, right? And there's one cat. I choose a door at random.
Right.
Most likely it does not have the cat, right? But I choose a door at random. And then somebody opens up 998 doors showing non-prizes and says, the cat is now either in the door you initially picked or this other one that I intentionally avoided.
Right. So you should always switch.
Right,
Yeah,
Understood.
exactly. And the only way that you're going to win the cat if you stick is if you guessed correctly at the beginning, meaning it's a 1/3 result. But if you didn't guess correctly, you will always win when you switch.
Right.
Because they're eliminating that extra
Right,
door,
right.
and that makes it a 2/3 probability.
And this is why Monty Hall won the Nobel Prize for mathematics.
That is my understanding, except there is no... There's that whole big rumor about why you don't have a Nobel Prize in math.
There's a rumor?
Well, there's the story is, and I am pretty sure it is not true, but it's really funny, and that's why I won't stop telling it, that the person who came up with the Nobel Prize, that their partner had an affair with a mathematician, and so it's one of those like, curses you adding people, I will never give you my special prize. So then we made up a bunch of our own. That's not really why, but
That's the real rumor?
I will,
a rumor?
That's a good way to word that. Yes,
real
that is
rumor.
a real rumor, meaning it is almost certainly not true, but it is something I have heard multiple times. And if it ever stops becoming a rumor, I will make it one again.
I choose to believe in the pettiness of people.
Exactly. Plus, it's just funny.
As a mathematician, do you generally see the world around you in mathematical terms?
I mean, in some ways, no, and in other ways, yes, right? It's not like I'm looking at things and saying, like, oh, there's a cloud. What's its fractal dimension, right? But I think that the way I approach problems is very mathematical. And also the way I converse with people tends to be very mathematical. It's all based on kind of the structure of the way you prove things. And so, if somebody tells me something as a fact that I don't know, then my first question is like, can I think of a reason why that wouldn't be true? Right. So you immediately go, which isn't great when you're trying to talk to other people to always be like, no matter what you say, I will try to prove you wrong. But
Be like walking into a studio and having somebody point out the mistakes in your book.
Exactly. You're getting lost 5 times. In a
Dan,
building.
you're plenty fun at parties. Don't worry about it.
Thank
You're
you
fine.
so much. You hear that, everybody.
But I guess the reason I thought about it, like imagining how this would occur to you, you write about about Euler's method?
Euler's method?
Euler,
Yep.
I wondered about that. Yeah, there's
Now
no
I get
pronouncer
to-
on that. Okay,
There is
Euler's
not.
method.
Intentionally to trap.
Ethan is staring at us like I have no idea what Euler's method is.
My hearing aid was turned down.
That's probably a good just strategy.
That is yeah. Euler's method, which you explain by the idea of Butterball, the cat,
Good
jumping
job
from
remembering the
one
cat's name.
shelf to another to knock over a plant.
Exactly. And so Euler's method is one of these numerical approximation techniques, if you want to sound fancy, that I teach in differential equations that allows you to kind of, when you know the way something's changing, it allows you to make predictions about what is going to be later, right? And so, yeah, Butterball's jump, I have no idea what made me think of that.
You don't even have a cat named Butterball.
I do not. No, all my cats are in there. One's in there twice on her insistence. She has a nickname, and so here's your secret content that you can only get on this exact podcast.
Easter egg, everyone.
Baby Bit is SpaghettiOs.
Oh.
And you also take
That
this
changes my understanding of the whole book now.
Oh, I know.
take this
right?
opportunity to introduce all your cats. Since you love them.
Okay, so there's SpaghettiOs, Conan the cat. I'll go and their age. Like Conan the cat, he's 17.
Wow.
Yeah, Meow Meow
My
Fuzzy.
son is 17. I wonder if they know each other.
They might. They probably. I mean, they go to the same school, right? I imagine. So when Conan chooses to show up, then there's Meow Meow Fuzzy Face, and that's a name again in case we. Little, what is it, registered trademark? Right, that's a name from BoJack Horseman, right? That's the name of the officer, the police officer. And then there's SpaghettiOs, and then our youngest is Mrs. Waffles.
From the standpoint of having studied math for as long as you have, was there something that all of this added up to for you? Like in the end, like actually having to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to take cats and I'm going to apply math to them, and now I you don't understand math more, but like maybe there's just like
Probably less.
what this exercise meant to you, maybe.
Yeah, and I've got two answers to that. So writing it was kind of like a triple threat, right? Because I had to come up with math concepts that would potentially be interesting to somebody if you're talking to them at a bar or at a party or something like that. I had to figure out how to like squeeze some kind of cat reference in there, and I really wanted it to be more than just the cat's doing this, right? I kind of wanted it to have something, or more than just a pun on a name, even though I certainly did not shy away from that. And then there was a third. Oh, yeah. And then the third is like, okay, now how do I actually explain this concept in a way with limited images? I can't just fill the book with images. And some of these are really hard concepts to explain, right? I mean, some of them people will be familiar with. The Pythagorean theorem, right?
The Pythagorean, yes.
As it was first known as, right? That one I think people will be familiar with. And so it's kind of a cutesy thing that really is, it really turns out to be more about degrees than about the Pythagorean theorem, and about Pythagoras being a cult leader. But then there's
I thought that was kind of an interesting side note that I was unaware of.
one of my favorite side notes, depending on your definition of cult.
Right.
Mine definitely.
We have a loose definition of cult over here at the Northward Studios.
Oh, there we go. Then, yes. And so, but then there's others that you would not have seen in like high school or even college, perhaps like a chaos theory one or a knot theory entry or not one. So then it's like, how do I explain this and make it interesting? So that was the struggle of it. But what it really meant to me was this may be like the most important thing to me personally I've ever produced using my mathematics credentials, which is really awesome to be able to say. I'm sorry to all my co-authors on past papers. All the results I have, they're trash compared to math.
All the students you've inspired over the years.
No. I meant that I've produced in terms of like, scholarly work. The talks I've given, not including teaching, the papers I've written, things like that. And I think it's because of it was just fun, and I enjoy doing mathematics. I hope there's a reason I'm where I am, right? I didn't just stumble into this. So I do enjoy doing mathematics, but then there's something about kind of turning away from this is a new research idea nobody's done before. There's 12 people on the planet you can tell about it, and you don't know any of them, right? It's not really that, but it feels that way sometimes. Like I can't explain my research to most of my non-math friends, but I can explain everything in this book to them, and that I felt like it's signifying, a point in my career where this kind of thing is, I don't want to say allowable, but maybe that's the word that makes the most sense, right?
You don't lose your math street cred for having written a book called Math Cats.
It's not like there's that one guy, his one contribution to mathematics is Math Cats. So he's not getting the Nobel Prize for math.
One of the things that you and I had a conversation about that was pretty enlightening to me, I was talking about how the world that you operate in was totally foreign to me because I have a writing degree, and the thing that I most often work in is
spelling.
Spelling, but like there's not very many like absolutes. Like I was telling you can do whatever you want. There are no rules. And my perception was that in math, it's all concrete. And you were like, well, it's actually like a lot more fluid and up for debate than you think.
Yeah, there are some. I really wanted to put a incompleteness theorem chapter in here because there's actually a theorem that says, there are some questions in math. We can prove that there are questions in math that exist that we can't answer. We can prove that, which is a really weird. How do you?
It'd be funny if you wrote that chapter, but then didn't end it.
And so it turns out that there is a lot more unknown, and that's one of the hardest things with my students. With anybody who's learning math is the kind of realization of a lot of people claim to have chosen math because there's always one right answer and therefore they know.
Exactly. That's where I was coming from. Right.
And that's one of the appeals. And I hate to kind of, pull the rug out, but it turns out it's not that way. There is often one right answer, right? The answer is usually is that thing you're saying true or not, as opposed to 5, right? The answer is usually about a theorem or something like that, or the existence of a particular thing.
But even the idea that like it's the Pythagorean theorem and not the Pythagorean law implies some element of uncertainty.
Or the other way, right? There's a weird. This is where we could have like the throwdown with like science and math,
right?
Because we use it very differently. In science, theorems, or then you're getting things like I'm guessing maybe you're alluding to like things like the theory of gravity, right? Or something like that. In math, when you have a theorem, if it's called a theorem, then
there's a proof, right?
Then it's been proven, and that's a whole thing that mathematicians, that's what we do, right? The idea is we take things that we know are true, one way or another, and then we use the laws of logic and math to kind of smash them together to make new things. So it's a very creative process, because a lot of times it comes down to, oh, I never once thought that my way of viewing this algebra problem would explain why it takes 52 shuffles to randomize a deck of cards. And so you have to be kind of creative to see these connections and transfer knowledge around. And then it's not necessarily that there's more than one answer or that you're not right or wrong. It's that there's a million ways to approach a problem. If you Google, how many proofs are there of the Pythagorean theorem, you're going to find a ton. One of our presidents did an original proof of Pythagorean theorem.
Was that Lincoln?
It was not, and it wasn't Roosevelt either. And I wish I could say for sure.
There was a president of the United States that did an original proof of the Pythagorean theorem.
Yes, and not a member of the band, but an actual president of the United States.
I think Wilson had a degree in economics, right? Maybe.
What was that?
Yeah. I think Wilson did have a degree in economics, maybe.
Sure.
Our guest has been Dan Look.
And one thing I would say about that story is that, just to wrap that part up, is that the fact that he did a proof of this theorem when we've known the theorem is true for thousands of years kind of gives you a little bit about what math is about, right? We know the result, so why visit it again? Well, it's kind of artistic. It's fun. It can be beautiful. And sometimes if you think of a new way to approach a problem, it accidentally opens a door to another problem you weren't thinking about.
Here's a strange question. I mentioned, I'm not even going to use this part of the question. It's not that strange, and it's not a question. No?
I feel
Our guest has been Mitch Teich.
lied to.
Conan T. Cat is 17 years old. My son is
is
17 years old.
Right.
I forget whether Conan T. Cat figures in this particular chapter, but it reminded me of there was one chapter. My son is better at math than I was, which is setting a fairly low bar. But the one thing he has always said, at least since I can remember him talking about math, is how cool fractals are.
Yes.
You said fractals are cool in this book. What makes fractals so cool? Explain to folks what a fractal is and why they're cool.
Are cool, and I can give you a couple of answers to what a fractal is, but I'll choose to give one that people might understand. The fractal is a infinitely self-similar object is kind of how we would say. And what we mean by that is that if you
like the Kardashians.
Exactly. You zoom in on a Kardashian, you get what? Another Kardashian. No, it's not like
Sorry.
Your sequel is Math
Take us down that.
Exactly. Breaking the internet. And so let's start with a really boring one that we wouldn't call a fractal, just a line, right? If you have a line, and provided you can't see the two endpoints, right, then you zoom in on a line, you have no idea what scale you're at, right? If nothing's marked, a line's a line. It looks the same no matter how far. And in fact, if you draw a circle that intersects that line anywhere, there's a copy of the complete line in there, smaller. You can stretch it out. That's the idea of a fractal, but that's really boring. What we really want is something a little more interesting. And so it turns out to be the base idea is you have this geometric object, and when you zoom in on it, it has similar properties to what it had before you zoomed. I mean, that's very loose, but thinking of coastlines and clouds, they have that idea. If you look at a really grainy, poor resolution picture of a coastline, it'd be really hard to tell whether or not that river or estuary or whatever is actually just a small stream, right? Is that 1 foot across or a mile across? I don't know. And that brings up the idea of like, how do you measure the coastline of something for two reasons. One, when does you start turning up that river? When does the coast become a riverbank and you stop counting it as coast and you just step across the river and then pick up again? I don't know. And the other problem is it's so crinkly that if you keep zooming in, that crinkliness doesn't go away. I mean, it does in real life, but you're, the pebbles and things like that all start to form little things that are sticking out. So if you're trying to walk around an island and you're walking at some certain step distance, it'll take you some distance to go around. But if you're counting your steps and you multiply by the number of steps it took you to get around, but then if you make that half as long, you're stepping twice as fast. It actually blows up and the coastline becomes longer. And the reason is that now you're kind of, something that you would have stepped over earlier, you now have to walk up a little ways because you can't reach over it and then get around it. And they found that in theory, coastlines in a certain way could be considered infinite. The shorter your step size, the longer it goes without bound.
This is like a corollary to Zeno's paradox, right?
It is not, but I love
Zeno's Or the other
paradox.
way around.
It would certainly be, oh God, I love Zeno. So, it's always fun to talk about somebody who doesn't believe in time or motion. But it's a great life with your Zeno. But which paradox? Because he liked to do paradoxes.
Oh, the one that I've always you could never walk across a room because you go halfway and then you have to wait
again. Yeah, I could see the relationship as you're making your steps smaller. You're now getting trapped in more of these pockets, and you never kind of go around. And so that was a famous paper. How long is the coast of Britain? From Benoit Mandelbrot wrote that, who then is like the father of fractals, and that's why in this chapter it's actually mittens, because it's how long is the coat of mittens.
Right.
Terrible. I'm so sorry. And it's all about mittens needing to get their perimeter, which is the distance around them, including if you go around the hairs, so that they can know if they can afford a visit to Vidal, Maine Coon to get their hair cut. This is going to be where people just turn this off. And the neat thing about fractals, besides the fact they are gorgeous, right? I mean, you go online, go to YouTube, you'll find any number of videos. But also, they really are the math that describes nature. Nature isn't circles and squares and lines. It's jagged things. Trees are self-similar, right? The trunk splits, then the branches split, and so it's much better for looking at nature than Euclidean standard math. Yeah.
Ethan, are you going to think about Dan's cats any differently the next time you cat sit?
I'm thinking that his cats are probably a lot smarter than I am, just by the nature of being around Dan.
Every time you've done scrap work at my house, scrap math or whatever, to figure out a bill or whatever, I've gotten several texts from my cats about just like, dude, are you sure? That's all.
You're trusting our lives to this bonehead?
Exactly. He's supposed to count the scoops he's giving us. He's went from 1 to 6.
Well, I have to go answer all those phone calls and emails about the "Let's Make a Deal" theorem. But Dan, look, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
That is Dan Look. He is the author of Math Cats: Scratching the Surface of Mathematical Concepts. Dan is also a professor of mathematics at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York. You can find out more about Dan, his cats, and math at ncpr.org/northwards. And while you're there, consider supporting this station with a financial gift. This is the NCPR annual fall fundraiser, and we're asking for you to support this vital service with a gift in any amount, whether that's $5 or $5 a month. It all ensures that NCPR can remain strong and in the North Country for generations to come. Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke, with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Doyle Dean is our production manager. Caitlin Kelly handles our social media, and Bill Hanel is our director of digital services. Our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. This is NCPR North Country Public Radio.